What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, we are going to be breaking down the 12.9 update, as we are going to be able to take a look at firsthand our Christmas events for the 2021 holiday season, as well as the newest SS fighter to be added into the game in the form of SS Chizuru. So we've got a lot to talk about today, but before we get into all of that and more, make sure, if you guys haven't already done so, that you smash that like button and subscribe. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Alright, you guys, so we got a lot of ground to cover today, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So as you can see, this is going to be your event hub right here. So we got plenty of stuff that we need to go over. Figure that the easiest thing to do is just to start with the stuff that's the simplest, and then we'll move on to the more complicated stuff. So first up here, let's go ahead and take a look at Kasumi's dice game. So this one here, I took a look through everything as far as the board is concerned, and of course we had this image from the official forum yesterday, from the forum announcement, and as you guys can see, pretty much standard fare. There's not going to be anything here that is too surprising, so pretty much exactly what you come to expect. These dice games are always going to be a really nice way to replenish some resources, so in general, not too shabby. But of course, the most important thing about this is always going to be what the completion rewards are, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. So this time around, we are going to be able to see here that there has been changes made to this. Now, typically, the past couple of dice game events that we've had, we've seen a lot of different rewards, specifically things such as dimensional invitations, and this time around we do not have that. However, they did go ahead and replace some of those items with things that are going to be pertinent to the situation that we're in right now with the Chizuru event. So as you guys can see, you are going to be able to pick up quite a few of these Chizuru event coins, which we'll talk about here later on in the video as to where you would use those. But in general, the rest of the stuff in here is going to be standard fare, like your hammers and your rubies and so on. So really good stuff in general, especially right now coming off the heels of a collaboration. We could definitely all use some more rubies. But of course, for the 10th round completion reward, you are going to get a new option card, and this new option card is going to be Merci Mademoiselle, and this is going to be a option card that increases your defense by 3.2% and your gold gain rate by 6% when clearing a stage, and decreases your damage received by 8%. In general, this is just going to be a standard gold gain card for your gold farm team. Not much to talk about here. However, I do want to point out the art here. I don't know if you guys have really taken a look at this card art with this, but this thing is hilarious to me, and also just a tad bit creepy. Not sure exactly why Ash is just hanging out while Liz is sleeping. Yeah, even though he is doing the whole Christmas thing, it's still kind of creepy. But either way, this is just going to be another gold gain card, so not going to be anything that we really need to go into any specific detail on. So nice to have another gold gain option card as always. Those are always going to be welcome additions. But like I said, you guys, the biggest thing here is going to be you getting those rubies, especially for the repeat reward. Once you've cleared this thing 20 times, you'll be able to get 50 rubies every single time that you clear it, which, you know, time will tell as to how many completions we can make on this thing. But in general, you just want to make sure that you at least get to those 20 rounds, especially considering the fact that you want all of those rubies as well as those event coins, because those event coins, you are going to want as many as humanly possible. So that is going to be the dice game, and with that being said, let's move on to the next one. And the next thing I want to go ahead and talk about is going to be the winter holiday crafting event. So as you guys can see, this is going to be a new crafting event, not too dissimilar from what we saw with the imprint stone crafting event that just ended with the Guilty Gear collaboration. Now this time around, you're actually going to be able to craft these different items down here, and you're going to be using these Christmas cookies that you are going to be able to obtain from various areas of these new events. So basically, as you guys can see, you're going to be able to get these ones here from the Rush Dungeon event. You're going to be able to get these here from the Secret Shop, and then this one here you're going to be able to get from the Quiz Time event. So pretty much tells you exactly where you can get these things and pick them up. Now as far as what you're going to be crafting, this was the most interesting thing to me, because if you take a look at it here, this is actually going to have a Fest Fighter selector in it, and you can pick any of the Fest versions of the holiday characters here, which is actually really cool. So I'm planning on definitely picking up some Winter Love Messenger Goro here if I possibly can with this. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at there, but beyond that, that's pretty much what you're getting as far as the major points there. So when it comes to the rest of this stuff, you're going to get some affinity boxes here. That's all right. These hammers here are interesting because if you take a look, these can actually be used for levels 1 through 10. So basically they're just like your rare enhancement hammers, which is cool. So I think we could all agree that we need more of those right now after that collaboration just ended. So the next thing here is going to be this box. Now, this growth support box is basically just going to have these here, so not anything too crazy, just going to be some items there that are always useful, but not anything worth noting. And then you can also go ahead and pick up some Awakened Tier XP capsules, so that's pretty much what you're looking at there. Not much to talk about with this, that's pretty much all there is to it. So this is just going to be something that honestly, the main point of it is going to be this for me, but otherwise, it's nice that we can pick up some extra hammers as well as some of these other items, so that's pretty much going to do it for the event crafting mission this time around. So next up here, we're going to talk about the quiz time event. So big shout out to the players over on the Korean side of the game that pointed out to me that this actually was an event that was part of the very first Christmas events that they got on the Korean side of the game. So apparently this has been in the game before, it's just that it's making its global debut this time around for the holiday season and hasn't been re-released since the original holiday events for the Korean side of the game, which I thought was pretty interesting. But with this thing, basically the reason why you're going to play through it, as you guys can see, these are going to be your rewards for doing it daily. So you can play this once a day, you can get 200 extra AP, you can get those Rudolph cookies, and for the first time clear you get those 5 rubies. Not a whole lot to talk about as far as the rewards are concerned. Really the biggest reason why you're doing this is to get the cookies for that crafting event that we just talked about. But when it comes to AP is always something that is welcome, so that's also nice. But in general, the way that this thing works is you're not going to necessarily be doing a whole lot of fighting, although you will be knocking out a wave after each question. But basically what you do is you go in, they're going to ask you a question, it's true or false, you pick X or O, there's going to be a giant X or a giant O on either side of the stage, and basically the hardest part of this entire thing is just figuring out where you got to stand in the split seconds that you're going to have for the time that they give you to actually read the question and then answer the question. So to be honest with you guys, none of the questions are all that difficult from what I've seen. They tend to be things that are just going to be easy little true or false questions about the King of Fighters and also about the King of Fighters All-Star. So not anything too crazy. Like I said, the hardest part of this thing tends to be having enough time to, one, register that what the question is, and then also to figure out exactly where you're going to stand in the short amount of time that they give you to do both of those things. But outside of that, not much to really talk about here. This is just going to be kind of a basic event you'll just do once a day. Not anything too crazy. So we can go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright you guys, so next up here we're going to talk about the newest Rush Dungeon event. So just like every other Rush Dungeon we ever get, this thing structurally is going to be the same as what we've come to expect. You're going to have 3 stages. You don't want to start grinding on this thing too much until the final stage opens up, obviously, because that's where you're going to see the most amount of your gains, and you want to make sure that you aren't wasting your AP. So right now would not be the time to grind on this thing. But as far as how it is structured, as far as what characters you're going to need for your bonus rewards, for your drops, of course, it's going to be all the Christmas characters as well as the old Christmas cards, so not anything too crazy to talk about there. Just go ahead and build up a team that is going to consist of mostly these things, and you'll be able to get your farm on in a pretty big way, but not much to talk about. Now, when it comes to the overall rewards here, same as what we've come to expect. You're going to get 50 rubies for doing this one. I'd assume that you'll get 50 rubies for clearing the 3rd stage as well, and then the middle stage will be kind of the redheaded stepchild of all 3 of them, just like usual. So there you have it, and there you are. But when it comes to the exchange shop, that is of course going to always be the most important part of any Rush Dungeon, and this time around, as you guys can see, man, we got a lot to talk about in here. Okay, so they did go ahead and put a ton of cards in here, as you guys can see, so they definitely want us grinding this thing in a huge way. I went ahead and looked through here, and to be honest with you guys, you are going to have to burn a ton of AP if you want to pick up all this stuff, and to be honest with you, you're probably going to want to do that. Now, when it comes to the items here, the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be Chizuru's 3PG finisher. So the 3PG finisher this time around, as you guys can see, for Chizuru, they did put 3 different versions in here. You're going to have one for attack up, you're going to have one for your skill damage up, and then you're going to have one for your crit up. So basically this is going to be exactly what we saw with the Guilty Gear cards for those characters. They've just gone ahead and done the same thing here. So basically this one here, as far as the special effect that is going to give Chizuru when she uses it, she is going to obtain 10% power when using this, and that is something that is going to be quite important when we talk about her kit, because Chizuru is an interesting SS character. We're going to put it that way. We'll talk more about that when we get to her, but overall, you guys, you'll probably want to pick up all 3 of these if you're a Chizuru fan, so you're definitely going to be grinding on this thing, but that obtaining 10% power is always nice to see, specifically for some things we'll talk about when we talk about her kit. But we're going to go ahead and move on here now. We're going to talk about the new 6-star card set that's also available in here, that is called Shrine Maiden of the Mirror. So if you guys take a look here, this is going to be the first defense support set that we have had in months. I don't think we have had a defense support set in forever. So basically by that, what I mean is a set card that is going to help defense type characters. That's pretty interesting that they finally got around to doing that, because it's been a long time since we've gotten one of these. But this time around, the card set is going to increase defense by 4.3% at base, and then when it comes to the special set effects, we are going to be increasing our defense by 25%, so we're getting an extra defense boost by 25% right off the bat, and then we are increasing our attack equal to 50% of our defense, so we're going to be getting some defense to attack conversion in the form of 50%, which is a huge multiplier, and then we increase our attack by a further 20% for 5 seconds when a defense type fighter lands an active skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds. In general, this is a really nice little set. I think that this is probably going to end up proving to be pretty powerful on some of these defensive type characters. Time will tell. I'm going to have to wait and see, and I don't like to make knee-jerk reaction calls to how the performance of cards specifically is going to work out until I actually get to use them. I really just try to give you guys kind of my knee-jerk reactions to it and try to keep my feelings on it a little bit tampered. So when it comes to this, I'm going to wait and see, but I do think that this card set definitely on paper at least looks like it could be pretty good. And like I said, it's nice to see that we're finally getting some support for the defensive characters for once, because it has been a very long time. Of course, we have been living off of Kaya sets and so on and so forth for a long time now, so it'll be interesting to see how this one kind of fits itself into the meta when it comes to those characters, but time will tell. You know, defensive type characters and defense versus attack and all that sort of thing tends to be kind of a murky subject when it comes to this game, so it'll be interesting to see if this makes much of a difference. But for a free 6-star set, good stuff. Not too shabby at all. I actually really like that. So in general, that is going to be your card set. Now, as far as anything else in here, you're going to have your standard fare. You're going to have your rare enhancement hammers, your Awaken XP capsules, your plus capsule mystery boxes, and so on and so forth. So not a whole lot to talk about there. Biggest thing is just make sure you're getting your hammers every day. But otherwise, guys, the biggest thing in here in general is just going to be making sure that you get all these cards. So you're going to be grinding this thing pretty heavily. So like I said, you'll probably want to go ahead and wait until the final chapter opens up. You don't have very long to wait, but that is going to be the Rush Dungeon event. And so finally, all of this brings us to the SS Chizuru Lucky Chance event. So, the SS Chizuru Lucky Chance event. You know, yesterday I talked about how this thing reminded me a whole hell of a lot of the SS Marie Rose event, which was kind of a mixed bag. I wasn't the biggest fan of that thing, although I did think that it had a ton of value on that board. And yeah, this time around, pretty similar as far as structure is concerned. I'm not seeing a whole lot of major differences here. You know, obviously the prize pool is going to be different, but in general, they pretty much copy and pasted it. But then they found a way to somehow make it worse, which we're going to talk about. So basically the idea behind this thing is you are going to go ahead and you're going to collect these coins, as you guys will see down at the bottom. You're going to collect these coins, and you're going to collect those from playing different missions, right? So if you go over here, you can take a look at your missions. And now these missions aren't going to be anything that is too crazy. As you go through here, mainly this stuff is going to be like dailies and so on and so forth. As you guys can see, I already did several of these just in like 5 minutes real quick before I started shooting, so I had some coins for recording. But in general, you see these items here. These are going to be what you need to roll on that board, and you can pick them up fairly easily. Now, the thing is with these events is, while it does on paper right off the top look pretty easy, keep in mind that there isn't going to be an infinite amount of times that you can do these types of missions. Eventually, they are going to cap off, and then that means that you are going to have very few options, and that means that your overall gains when it comes to these coins over time starts to diminish. So you get kind of a false sense of security on the first or second day as you do these, but as these start to kind of run out on you and you realize that there's a cap on how often you can do these, or how many times over the course of the event rather that you can do these, you begin to realize that these things tend to be a lot more difficult than they appear. Now, when it comes to this, of course, one of the nicest things about this is that attempt to enhance an imprint stone one is there, and I believe that goes past like 200 times, so you can actually do that quite a bit. So that one's going to be a really nice way for you guys to be able to pick up some of these coins. However, do keep in mind we just came off of a collaboration. I hate to keep mentioning it, but it's something that is worth mentioning quite a few times in this video, because I'm sure a lot of us are kind of low on hammers right now. I know I am. So in general, when it comes to this, it's pretty much exactly what we've come to expect with some of this other stuff from these types of events. So, you know, really that's pretty much all there is to it when it comes to these. Now, there's other various ways throughout the game you're going to be able to pick these up, just like that login event and so on and so forth. But in general, you're just going to go through here and you're going to try and make sure that you finish off all of these every day as best you can. And then you're going to go back to the board and you're going to try your luck. Now, basically with this thing, the whole thing that is going to upset a lot of people is the real big prize here is going to be these coins. Now, typically when we get these types of events, these events aren't necessarily anybody's favorite, but typically when we've gotten this event in the past, we've been able to just have the character for rolling that and hitting that. We get the character for the first time we hit it, then it resets the board, and the next time we hit it, we get a memory, and so on and so forth. This time around, we have to collect these stupid coins. Okay, so you get this coin here, and you know, you might think to yourself, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal. You know, I can go in and I can go ahead and exchange it for Chizuru. Yeah, well, you'd be wrong, because that's not how it works. So if we go in here and find this thing, because there's so many of these tabs. Okay, so if you go in here, you're going to notice to craft Chizuru, as we knew from yesterday's video, if you guys saw that from the announcements, because there was a photo that was floating around, you need 3 of those shards in order to go ahead and make Chizuru, who we will talk about her kit momentarily. But then where it starts to get really stupid, in my opinion, it takes 3 to get a memory. So whereas before with the Marie Rose event, we hated that thing in general because we had to roll just 1 time on her to get the memory, now we have to do that 3 times to get a memory. Yeah, this sucks. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this sucks. I'm not a big fan of this event at all. I think this event is probably, to be honest with you guys, okay, I'll just be completely brutally honest, this sucks ass, and here's why. We're gonna go to the secret shop and we're gonna take a look here. So here is exactly why they want you to have such a hard time picking up memories for her. It's because they want you to buy these. So as you guys can see, they have all of these different packages in here, and I'm not going to go through all these. I'm just going to use this to prove a point and set an example. But if you guys take a look here, $80 for 6,000 coins and a bunch of rubies. Yep. Now, I get it, the ruby part, I'm not talking about value. I'm not talking about any of that in this video. I'm not going to get into that. But what I wanted to kind of hammer home is they are basically making her a premium character. And nobody can prove to me otherwise, just based on what I'm seeing here, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, having to go 3 times just to get 1 memory on this thing, no. I do not agree with that. I think that's ridiculous. You know, even if this time around we do end up somehow being able to acquire more coins than we have in the past with some of these events, that still doesn't mean much if your RNG isn't very good, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Like, basically you're at the whim of that board, and I don't know if I would rather just have a banner at that point. Now, of course, right now the timing of this thing is definitely welcome, as I mentioned yesterday, because we just came off of a collaboration, so we aren't necessarily going to have to worry about having to use our rubies right now, so we can save. But at the same time, Chizuru fans, I feel bad for them, because there are a lot of Chizuru fans out there that I've talked to before that have been waiting for this character, and yeah, they kind of did your girl dirty. I'm not gonna lie, guys. So yeah, big rip on this event in my opinion, but I'm gonna say time will tell as far as just how much of a rip it is. You know, this might end up being something to where if by the end of it we can at least get her to A3, that's one thing. But another thing to point out about this is, from what I can tell, I've looked through all of this stuff, I do not see any imprint stones whatsoever, so that isn't necessarily an enormous problem, because honestly there's so many SS stones in the game at this point from past SS characters that you can kind of just mix and match how you feel as long as you have unpairing kits. But I did find that pretty interesting, to be honest, that they didn't do that, because I think we've pretty much had stones for every iteration of an SS character since the beginning. So yeah, something to point out. Now, luckily, this option card is not going to cost you 3 of those things, so this time around this one's only 1. So when it comes to this one, if you take a look here, this is actually a pretty good little option card too. It's going to increase your defense by 3.2%, but it's going to decrease your skill cooldowns, so really interesting stuff right there. That's always something that is welcome to see. But the special effect is going to be for Chizuru, obviously, and it increases your attack equal to 30% of your defense. So again, the theme of the defense to attack conversion remains. This time around, we get that coupled with some skill cooldowns, so that's really good. This is a nice little option card. I think it is definitely something I would want to test on her. It could definitely prove to be pretty good on her, but then again, I would have to see its performance to know and kind of see exactly how she performs as far as all this defense to attack conversion and so on and so forth. But in general, good stuff. But I just don't like this event. I really don't. So again, I'm going to try and be a little bit patient with it. We have 19 days remaining on this thing, so we have plenty of time to do it. This Christmas event is going to be running for a while, but at the same time, I really don't like that they did this part. Everything else about this to me is whatever. Like, it still would have been not great, but it could have just been something where I wasn't that upset about it. But needing 3 of these for 1 memory, yeah, no, especially when the RNG is the way it is. So like, for instance, guys, let's go ahead and roll on here. See what happens. See what happens. You can already tell we did not get Chizuru here because it would have already popped up. But yeah, I don't agree with the needing 3 for a memory thing. I think that that's a little heavy-handed. Even if we can use generic memories and we've just had an event where we were able to craft a few, that doesn't matter to me at all. That doesn't compensate for this, because I do think that a lot of Chizuru fans out there are going to end up struggling and probably are going to feel like they're being forced into trying to have to buy stuff, and that just isn't right. So yeah, there you go, guys. So there's a bunch of items. So yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I expected. So anyway, you guys, that is basically how this thing works. Sorry to say, not the greatest thing in the world, but it is what it is. So with all of that being said, now that we have talked about or ranted about that, let's go ahead and talk about Chizuru herself and see exactly why we are going to put ourselves through the stresses of all of this and what it is we are trying to work toward. So SS Chizuru is a red defensive type with a leadership ability that increases blast skill damage by 65% and obtains 5% power upon using a blast skill. This is a hybrid leadership ability. We have not seen a leadership ability such as this in the past, and this is actually low-key extremely potent. This is really powerful. In fact, this is going to be extremely good for characters such as Dizzy, who we just covered here on the channel from the Guilty Gear collaboration. But when it comes to this leadership ability, I definitely think that this is going to be really powerful. In general, this character has a lot of support in her kit, and you're going to see that as kind of a theme running through her as we go through this kind of overview of her kit in general, and I do think that there is a lot of really cool perks to her, even if she doesn't end up being by herself out of the box just an absolutely OP monster, because in general she has so much support going on with her. It's going to help your team out a ton. So yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about here with her as far as things that I could see her being good in. So in general, that leadership ability, super, super cool. Now, when it comes to this character's kit, let's talk about the course first, right? So you've got that 30% power charge rate increase. That right off the bat is always good. But then as we go through here, we're going to notice we do have some increases to our attack, our defense, our blast skills, so on and so forth. Not much to talk about there. So what we're going to talk about is going to be the exclusive cores. So the first one here is going to reflect stun, with a PvP exclusive of reflecting 20% of damage received for 5 seconds when attacked on a cooldown of 13 seconds. In general, reflecting stun in PvE, whatever. In PvP, really good. Now, with the PvP exclusive there, also really good, reflecting 20% of damage for 5 seconds is quite a bit, so that's really nice. But she's also going to increase her attack by 20% if Kyo is in the formation, and increases her critical damage by 50% if Iori is in the formation. So, Team Sacred Treasures, this is okay. The multipliers are really nice. The only thing I don't really like about it is not only is she kind of beholden to one character to get all of her performance, but 2 characters to get all of her performance. Now, that isn't to say, of course you can use these characters as strikers, I'm sure, to get these bonuses, but at the same time, 2 slots on your team just to unlock her full potential, it's kind of sus, not gonna lie. So, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because again, the multipliers are really good, especially increasing your critical damage by 50% if Iori's in the team. But at the same time, I just don't like to see that many characters needed in order to make one character viable. So it is what it is. Not too terrible. The multipliers and the overall effect are amazing. I just don't necessarily like the idea of having to have 2 other characters just to make sure that she is doing what she's capable of. So now, with Duty of the Family, all team members gain 20% power upon using an ultimate move on a cooldown of 20 seconds. You can already see, as we've gone through here already, this character is going to be really nice for time attack. This character in general, I think, is going to be a time attack beast. So keep in mind that 20% power goes to the entire team, so all of your team members are going to get that. That's really, really good, you guys. Now, increasing your attack equal to 60% of your defense for 7 seconds when using a blast skill on a cooldown of 7 seconds, also really good. This is going to be a character, it'll be interesting to see the DPS comparisons between a full defensive set of SS stones versus an attack set. I almost get the feeling this is definitely going to be one of the rare instances where you're going to want defensive stones, but I haven't seen any numbers yet, so I'm not going to try and make that call. So don't go building anything based on that, because I don't know anything yet. Just wait and see what the overall damage comparisons are. I'm sure somebody out there is going to be able to do that. If I had unpairing kits, I would do so, but probably not going to happen unless I somehow get lucky with those in the next couple of days. Now, when it comes to her exclusive for the special signature fighter, she is going to gain 1.4% power every 0.4 seconds when in guard stance, and she's going to decrease damage received by 70% for 3 seconds when accumulated attacks received, guard included, reaches 5 times on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So in general, when it comes to this, not much to talk about, pretty much standard fare for SS characters. So in general, we're not going to go too in depth with that, because it is pretty much what we've come to expect with these types of effects. So in general, kind of a sparse core set, to be honest with you guys, as far as personally helping herself in PvE. When it comes to this character, I think this is going to be one of those characters that's more of like a support character than anything. She's going to be one of those characters you're going to use in specific instances that is going to be able to do really well in those instances, but outside of that, as far as just general everything PvE, I don't necessarily think that she's going to be a character that's going to make major waves in everything. However, she is going to have niche uses that are going to set her apart and make her a sought-after character, but that is pretty much the cores. Like I said, kind of a mixed bag, but let's take a look at the skills. So first thing up here, you're going to see that we do have a derived skill or chain ability or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the first one here. Now, this is going to deal Starlight damage equal to 38% of attack every 1 second for 8 seconds to the target upon landing a skill, and she increases the target's damage received by 30% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, with a PvP exclusive of disabling the target's active skills for 4 seconds upon landing a skill. So, right off the bat, she does have Starlight damage for 8 seconds, which is really, really nice. She's going to be able to increase the target's damage received, which is also really nice, and the PvP exclusive is also really good. So this is a good skill in general. It's a nice start, but let's see how it finishes off here with this derived skill. So as you guys can see, she is going to be able to give herself super armor for 3 seconds when using a skill, with a 25% chance to reset the cooldown when using a skill, and all team members obtain 4% power upon using it. So again, guys, support character for time attack, anybody? That's what I'm seeing with this character. That is the biggest thing I'm seeing. Now, of course, I'm going to have to wait and see how she performs in things such as Lunatic difficulty against Omega Rugal. Of course, I don't have her yet, obviously, so it's going to be a little bit before I can test that, but I'm sure somebody out there has already gotten lucky enough to get her and can do that math for you guys, but I don't necessarily know exactly how well or how bad she's going to perform there one way or the other yet, but I can already tell you right off the bat that this is going to be a character that is going to help in time attack in a big, big way, and is going to be a character that is very useful for specific things. So next up here, she is going to be able to, on her S2, stun the target for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included, and then she's going to deal radiant damage to the target for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, so that is also really, really nice. So basically, she is going to have on the S1 and the S2 2 different forms of being able to apply Starlight damage, which is also really nice. She's also going to have a stun, which is also really good, so another really good skill. So this is starting to shape up to be a pretty nice little overall character when it comes to the skills. So next up here, or last up here, depending on how you want to look at it, with the actual skills, and then we'll talk about the finishers, she is going to have Hyper Armor for 3 seconds, as well as having Starlight Explosion equal to 5.5 times of the remaining Starlight damage, and of course this is going to be an Airborne Interrupt. So in general, you guys, she does have Hyper Armor with an Interrupt on her kit, however they decided to put the Explosion on that skill, so yeah, that can be something that can hold her back as far as her performance is concerned in things such as Lunatic difficulty against Omega Rugal and so on. However, we've seen other characters in the past be able to overcome that and it not be a big deal, so the jury's out again until I actually see her in action. However, this is interesting to me because it basically means that you are not going to have much of a choice. You're going to want your Hyper Armor because it is also going to be on your Interrupt, and that is of the utmost importance in all of these different modes. So, you know, having that explosion there also is going to be kind of a mixed bag, but in general might not end up being that big of a deal, like I mentioned. So of course we already talked about the fact that on her 3PG finisher she is going to gain 10% power when using it, so that's another big thing to point out. She doesn't have an effect on her core finisher, but in general, you guys, that is going to be the kit. So SS Chizuru, what do I think? On paper, this looks like a really, really, really solid support style SS character that is going to be more so used for things such as time attack to help boost your other characters, as well as that leadership ability than anything, who is probably also going to find a home as a option for Lunatic difficulty against Omega Rugal. But then again, time's going to tell. You know, really this character, it's tough to gauge because one, she has kind of a mixed bag on her cores. She has kind of some interesting things with her overall skills on her kit, but her kit in general for her skills, in my opinion, is fine. You know, really the biggest thing with her is going to come down to how much damage she's able to ramp up when it comes to the builds for this character, because she is so based off of defense to attack conversion. So that does seem to be what they designed the support for her around as far as these other cards and so on and so forth. So it's going to be hard to gauge exactly how this character is going to perform. So we're going to have to be patient with this one and wait and see until either myself or someone else can build her up and test her out. But I definitely see a lot of positives here. I just have a lot of questions as well. So in general, I do think that Chizuru looks strong, but as far as how strong she looks, the jury's still out in my opinion. It's too tough to tell with this one because this is kind of an odd character build. So we're gonna have to wait and see, you guys. But in general, definitely a character you want to try and get, because again, I do think that her performance in things such as time attack, especially the way she supports your teammates, that alone is worth it. So, you know, at the end of the day, we'll just have to wait and see how good she is at everything else, but I could definitely see her being really solid. So anyway, you guys, that pretty much does it for all this stuff. I think really the only thing that I didn't really talk about is the new check-in log. As you guys can see there, that's what you're looking at. So, you know, the biggest thing, we already talked about this yesterday, the biggest thing is going to be that you can get those Chizuru event coins for the final day of logging into this. Otherwise, 300 dice for the dice board is nice as well. So, not much to talk about there, you guys. So, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I think I've pretty much covered all the major points of this update. I didn't want to go into the packages and all that in today's video because this was already going to be long. So, you know, when it comes to this stuff in general, overall, you know, this holiday season stuff is a mixed bag in my opinion. You know, there's really not anything here that's overly special. Not anything here that's going to be that crazy. You know, there's some stuff that is really good. You know, a lot of this stuff is really nice because we can just kind of replenish some of our resources after that collaboration drained most of us. But, you know, when it comes to some of the other decisions here, I think that they really messed up when it comes to the overall Chizuru event in general. I do not like the structure of this. You know, I mean, I'm going to show it some grace here and wait and see, you know, just how hard it is to obtain this stuff, you know, as far as are we going to be able to acquire just so many coins that it doesn't matter, or whatever the case may be, to compensate for the fact that we no longer can just roll a memory. We have to build one for 3 of these rolls. So, you know, I'm going to wait and see, but I still do not think it's going to end up going very well. So we'll have to wait and see, guys, but that is my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments section down below. As always, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You all take care. Peace.
Continue.